Revealed, Black CEO's incredible journey from heartbreaking blockade to life-changing triumph. The words echoed through the buzzing streets of Harmony Springs, like whispers of a miracle. Here was Marcus, a man who had risen from the shadow of his grandmother's sacrifices, climbing to heights no one had dreamed for him. He was the embodiment of a dream woven by the gentle hands of a woman who raised him, firm but nurturing, wise but tough. In the fading light of a summer evening, Marcus leaned against the weathered oak of the old schoolyard, thoughts swirling like leaves in the wind. Memories flooded back, the laughter of children playing, the golden afternoons spent under his grandmother's watchful gaze. His heart ached with both pride and sorrow. She had been his North Star, pushing him relentlessly toward the horizon. When he earned that scholarship to a prestigious university, it felt like the universe was winking at him, a green light signaling the beginning of his journey to the tech world. Yet, as he pursued the intoxicating high of ambition, a weight settled in his chest. This success, crowned in shimmering possibilities, threatened to sever the closeness of his family, a constellation he had depended on all his life. Would the glitz of the tech scene dim the bright spark of family loyalty? Marcus threw himself into the bustling rhythms of startup life, where energy thrummed like electricity in the air. Vibrant discussions about innovation tickled his practical mind, sparking dreams of elevating his community through technology. But then life twisted in an unforgiving blow. The very firm he had allied himself with turned a blind eye to his grandfather's sacrifice, a respected veteran who fell victim to corporate neglect, overshadowed by profits and statistics. In his gut churned a storm of emotions: anger, betrayal, determination. He decided to organize a fundraiser to spotlight injustices faced by veterans like his grandfather, a mission fueled by love but met with resistance. Skepticism twisted through the familiar faces of his town, compounding the pressure of societal labels. The failure of his rally stung, leaving behind the bitter taste of self-doubt. The night of the pivotal town hall arrived, the room filled with raw energy, voices layered like a tapestry of hope and frustration. Residents rallied, spirits high in a delicate dance of rhetoric. With his pulse quickening, Marcus found himself at the podium, surrounded by familiar faces searching for a spark. Suddenly, all at once, the weight of their struggles pressed down on him, igniting a fire in his heart. This was not just about him. What if I stood up for them? The thought gripped him. The tension thickened, and every eye in the room rested upon him, their expressions a blend of expectation and uncertainty. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. His heart raced as he stared out at the audience. Would he choose to remain silent, tucked away in the comfort of personal success? Or would he rally for the roots that had nurtured him? Just as he gathered breath to shout, "We need to fight for our veterans," a voice rang out from the back of the room, throwing his thoughts into disarray and leaving everyone in suspense. "Marcus, how can we trust you?" The words rang out with an edge of frustration, slicing through the air like a cold wind. The speaker was a familiar face: Mr. Simmons, an older man who had once mentored Marcus during his high school years. The disappointment in his eyes cut deeper than any blade. The room fell silent. The weight of Marcus's silence was palpable. Every pair of eyes seemed to lean toward him, weighing his response. A lump formed in his throat. He knew what Simmons was asking. He felt the sting of it. The community had seen him pursue success, and now, they feared he had lost touch with where he came from. "Mr. Simmons," Marcus started, his voice trembling slightly. "You taught me that the greatest strength comes from understanding our past. That's why I'm here tonight, to bring our stories to the forefront, to honor our veterans and fight for change." Simmons crossed his arms, not yet convinced. "But change in what way, Marcus? You've climbed high. Are you ready to come back down and fight in the trenches with us? What's in it for you? The question hung in the air, drawing murmurs of agreement from others in the crowd. Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. It was a valid concern. Too many people, once they reached the top, forgot the hands that helped them get there. He stepped forward, letting the energy of the room surround him. What if I told you this isn't about me? His voice took on a new strength, echoing with the conviction of his purpose. What if I told you that every step I've taken was guided by the love and sacrifices of those who fought for us? My grandfather, your fathers, brothers, friends. They deserve to be heard, not just brushed aside for profit. They are more than numbers, and their stories matter. As he spoke, the audience shifted. Hope flickered in the eyes of some, though skepticism lingered. He could feel the energy changing, like the first breeze before a storm. Maybe I haven't been on the ground with you, but I want to be. I can't go back in time, but I can ignite a movement. Together, we can push for policy changes, raise funds, advocate for resources. But I need each of you to join me. The murmurs around the room began to shift. Nods and whispers of agreement flashed across the faces before him. The first cracks of resistance were appearing, and Marcus seized the momentum. Let us build a bridge to the future where our veterans are honored, where their needs are met, and their sacrifices recognized. A woman from the aisle raised her hand. What can we do? Marcus paused, taking a deep breath. The flicker of determination burned brighter within him. Let us start right here, right now. We can form a committee, reach out to local businesses, connect with veterans organizations. Let us bring this fight into the light. By the time he finished speaking, the air in the room crackled with energy, a chorus of voices mending doubt into a shared vision. Marcus could see it, the fire igniting in others, the embers that his words stirred, sparked by common purpose. But just as he began to feel the lift of possibility, a loud crash echoed from outside the building. The commotion was unsettling, a stark reminder of the challenges that lay ahead. Everyone turned to the doors, anxiously drawn to the chaos unfolding just beyond their little sanctuary of hope. What now? Someone murmured, and Marcus felt the swell of anxiety surge. His heart raced, uncertainty taking hold again. What if this moment of unity was about to crumble? He stepped closer to the crowd, ready to address whatever threat loomed outside. But as he looked into their eyes, he knew that whether together or individual, they were about to face something big, and he was determined to be the voice leading them through it. What awaited them outside? Would it be a confrontation, a chance to unite further, or perhaps a bitter revelation? The loud crash sent a shockwave through the room, snapping Marcus from his thoughts. There was something wild about the energy in the air, he couldn't quite put his finger on it. He looked around at the faces, a tapestry of worry and curiosity woven tightly. The murmurs escalated, tension pulling everyone closer together. Stay calm. Marcus called out, trying to keep his voice steady. Let us figure out what's happening. He pushed through the crowd toward the doors, his heart thudding in his chest. He reached for the handle, pausing just a moment. The world outside felt like a distant storm. What awaited him might either strengthen their resolve or dismantle their hopes. With a firm pull, he swung open the door. The scene beyond unfolded like a dark tapestry. A group of young men was gathered near the community center's entrance, their faces painted with anger. Some were shouting, jostling with a few older members of the community. The sound of shattering glass echoed from a nearby storefront, more chaos, a whirlwind of impulse and emotion. Stop! Marcus shouted, raising his arms. The words felt heavy in the air, almost swallowed by the thrum of tension. He stepped outside and saw Mr. Simmons pushing through the crowd, his eyes wild with concern. Marcus, be careful. Simmons warned, his voice hoarse, but Marcus had gone too far. He couldn't turn back now. He needed to act, to calm the roiling tide of anger. What is going on? He asked, trying to lock eyes with anyone who would listen. One of the younger men yelled back, "Nothing's changing for us. All those speeches don't mean anything. We're done with waiting. Believe me." "I understand," Marcus replied, voice raised but steady. "But violence isn't the answer. We need to talk, find a way to use our voices, not fists." Around him, eyes were shifting, some narrowing, others wide with surprise. They weren't just angry, they felt abandoned. "Look at us," another shouted. "You think words will fix this? We've put up with too much." For a brief moment, Marcus felt the frustration and pain of their struggles slice through him. He could see his grandfather, could feel the weight of history in his bones. But he also saw a future one he was fighting for, and he needed them with him. "Listen," he continued, taking a powerful step forward. "Let us channel this energy into action. I'm here because of you. Together we can demand change that matters. We can be a movement stronger than any punch thrown from anger. Let us create solutions instead of damage." The words felt right, an ember catching in the dry brush of their frustration. He could see it, a flicker of understanding was breaking through some hardened expressions. But the young men were still tense, arms crossed and brows furrowed. "Okay," one said cautiously, "but how do we know you'll stick around? You talk a big game here, but we've seen people like you leave once things get tough." Marcus swallowed hard. It was another valid fear, but he couldn't let doubt drown his message. He opened his mouth to respond, but the door behind him slammed shut, and the noise from the street suddenly seemed to amplify. "Let us take it inside," he shouted, glancing back at Simmons for support. "We can figure this out together." As Marcus gathered himself, he felt the weight of their collective hopes resting on his shoulders. He stepped forward, ready to lead them all back into dialogue, but just then, a piercing scream sliced through the noise, freezing the tense atmosphere around them. "What was that?" someone said, eyes wide with fear. Marcus felt the breath catch in his throat. They had all come to address the past and fight for the future, but now they were stuck on the edge of something darker. What chaos loomed just beyond their sight? And could unity truly prevail? The scream echoed again, sharper this time, pulling Marcus from the deep well of uncertainty he found himself in. Panic rippled through the crowd, faces shifting from anger to fear. It was a feeling he'd felt before, the kind that roasted in his gut. "Stay close," he shouted, hoping to anchor them. "What's happening?" someone gasped, eyes darting around, wild and scanning for trouble. He could almost feel the collective heartbeat of the crowd, matching the rhythm of his own racing pulse. Mr. Simmons stepped closer to Marcus, his brow furrowed. "We need to see what's going on. It might be a diversion." Simmons angled his head in the direction of the scream. Marcus nodded, steeling himself. He felt every inch of his resolve tested. The anger from the young men still simmered behind him, but a more pressing fear had now taken hold. He moved cautiously, the crowd parting slightly to let him through. When they rounded the corner, the scene took a wild twist. In the street, a woman was kneeling over a figure, her wails laced with pure agony. A small child, no older than 6, lay sprawled on the pavement, unmoving. The world around him shattered and reformed into something gut-wrenching. "Call for help," Marcus shouted, but his voice sounded muted against the rising tide of horror. He pushed his way through the mass of people, urgency gripping him tight. The atmosphere was somber, heavy with disbelief. As he reached the woman, he dropped to his knees beside her. "What happened?" he asked, though he already felt the answer clawing at his gut. "There was a car, it sped off. I tried to grab him." She couldn't form words, only sobbed. Marcus felt his heart tumble. The anger swelling in the crowd behind him risked exploding again. "Help is coming," he assured her, but he had begun to doubt those very words. He reached for the child instinctively, checking for any signs of life beneath the warmth of his small body. The sheer weight of a parent's terror washed over him like icy water. The crowd began to murmur, tension ricocheting. Some were calling for justice, others were simply in shock. He could sense the undercurrent of anger starting to bubble back up, brewing amidst the growing chaos. Wait! Everyone, listen! Marcus stood, raising his voice to break through the noise. We need to stay calm. Raising our voices won't help this child. We have to focus on helping, not letting anger consume us again. He could see the young men's expressions shift from rage to confusion. For every person who leaned toward violence, there was another still clinging to that flicker of hope he had kindled moments earlier. Moments felt like hours as they awaited help, an electric pulse of anxiety wrapping around them. An ambulance siren wailed in the distance, inching closer. But apprehension clawed at him. What if the child was hurt too badly? What if this tragedy reminded everyone of their fragility? Finally, the sirens roared to life, and paramedics burst onto the scene, unyielding professionals cutting through the emotional haze. Marcus stepped aside, giving them space, feeling like he was watching the reality of the world reel in panic. Then, a roar broke through the crowd. This is why we fight. One of the young men yelled, fists clenching. Because nothing ever changes. Others in the crowd echoed his sentiment, tension rising sharply with each shout. No. This isn't the solution. Marcus felt his heart race again, his voice flooded with urgency. He had to redirect this energy, and fast. What he didn't know was whether he was up for the challenge. With one last look at the commotion, he knew now that unity was on a razor's edge. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what came next. If we want justice, we need to rally together, not tear each other apart. The crowd quieted for a moment, confusion mixed with a hint of understanding. But could they truly see their way through the flames of anger that were threatening to consume them all? As the paramedics worked, and the cries turned into murmurs, Marcus's resolve began to harden. He had to make them understand. But before he could continue, the sound of sirens faded into the distance, leaving behind only echoes of uncertainty. Would they rally around him, or was this moment just the beginning of their downfall? The weight of the question loomed large as he stood among them, at the crossroads of a community yearning for change. The panic began to bubble again, an unsettling cocktail of grief and rage swirling through the crowd. Marcus could see the young men's expressions tightening, their anger simmering just beneath the surface. The paramedics worked with quick precision, but their movements felt like a distant specter against the bedlam surrounding them. Listen! Marcus shouted again, tightening his fists at his sides. We're not helping him like this. We need to focus on what matters now. The urgency in his voice cut through the chaos, if only for a moment. Some faces met his gaze, searching for answers, while others turned away, wrestling with their emotions. A man stepped forward, his face set in a grim mask of determination. You think talking will change anything? You think it'll bring him back? His voice was strained, raw with anger. Marcus felt the weight of his words. The community had seen so much loss, and the flames of frustration were all too familiar. No, it won't bring him back, he replied, voice steadier than he felt. But turning against each other? That'll kill us all. We need each other. We need to stand together. A moment passed, heavy with uncertainty. The crowd was searching for a leader, a voice in the darkness. He realized that in that moment, he was not just a bystander, he was their hope, their last stake in an ember of connection. From behind him, Mrs. Henderson, a local teacher, emerged from the chaos. Marcus is right, she shouted. We need to show them we won't be beaten. We need to tell his story, not just ours. Her voice rang out with the kind of strength one could only summon from years of nurturing kids and caring for the community. A few others began to nod, their faces shifting from anger to something else, understanding, maybe. The crack in the suffocating facade of outrage began to widen. As the paramedics lifted the small child onto a stretcher, Marcus's heart ached. He wanted to call out words of comfort, but all he could do was watch. The community's heartbeat found a steady rhythm in the murmur of voices, leaning toward unity rather than division. Let us march for him. Let us show everyone that we want justice, but that we stand as one. Marcus yelled, adrenaline surging through him. The crowd stirred, the idea ignited a flicker of hope. They needed a cause, a purpose. Just then, a woman in a bright yellow sweater stepped forward, tears streaming down her cheeks. I don't want my son to grow up in a world filled with this kind of pain, she cried out. I want him to feel safe. To know he can be happy. Her plea resonated with many around her. Marcus felt a swell in his chest. This was the turning point, the rekindling of their collective spirit. We need to honor him, show the world we won. Stay silent. We will demand change and we will do it together. The calls for justice morphed into a chant, voices rising, ringing out against the darkened streets. Together. 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 As the chants grew stronger, Marcus felt something shift. The anger had transformed into purpose. Hope threaded through them, knitting a sense of belonging that had been frayed for so long. But he couldn't shake the nagging worries that still clawed at him. Had they really turned the tide? Just then, a figure emerged from the shadows, someone he didn't expect to see in this moment of unity. The young man who had been at the center of the tension before was making his way through the crowd, fists clenched, his expression shifting from hostility to curiosity. What would he bring to this charged moment? Would he amplify their message, or ignite the embers of fury once more? Marcus felt the tension coil in the air, thick and electric. Everything hinged on how they would respond to one another now. Would they embrace the change they needed, or would the cycle repeat? As that young man locked eyes with Marcus, the weight of the moment felt almost unbearable. What path lay ahead was uncertain, and that uncertainty made it all the more real. Where would they go from here? Would this night mark the dawn of real transformation or just another restless chapter in their story? Questions lingered in the air, tantalizingly unspoken, waiting for the courage to break free. The intensity in the air felt palpable. Marcus could see the young man's jaw clench as he surveyed the crowd. It was like he was measuring the weight of their grief, their passion. The chant hung in the air, vibrating against the damp pavement. Together. Together. It was a lifeline tossed into the chaos, and Marcus hoped the young man would grab it. Slowly, the young man approached. His hands relaxed, and the fire in his eyes began to flicker. I don't want to fight. I don't want to hate. But how do we move forward? He looked almost vulnerable, caught between the pain of the past and the hunger for change. Marcus stepped forward, feeling the distance between them shrink. We move forward together, he said, the words pouring from his heart. It's about talking, not just shouting. It's about listening. What can we do to make sure this never happens again? He gestured toward the crowd, inviting them into this dialogue, this transformative moment. The young man's brows knitted together. You think it's just going to change like that? People are angry for a reason. They want to know why these things keep happening. Nods rippled through the crowd, and Marcus's heart raced. This could be the moment they needed, the brave step toward an understanding that they were all in this together. Yes, he continued, his voice steadier now. But anger alone won't solve anything. It just breeds more chaos. We need to channel that anger into something constructive. The young man looked thoughtful, processing the words and their implications, while the crowd awaited his response. Would he embrace this new path, or would fear drive him back to hostility? After a beat, a flicker of determination sparkled in the young man's eyes. Fine. Let us stop blaming each other and start figuring out solutions. My brother's gone. This community's hurting. We need to find a way to rebuild. A collective breath was released. The tension morphed into the beginnings of coalition, as more voices piped up. We need community meetings. We need to know what our kids need. We should reach out to local leaders and demand support. Marcus's heart surged with hope. Here it was, the ripple of transformation, born from shared pain. Yes. Let us start by sharing. Where do our needs overlap? Everyone here has experienced fear, anger, loss. If we unite our stories, we can shape the narrative. People began to step forward, sharing their fears, their hopes. A woman spoke of her son facing injustice at school. An older gentleman recounted how he had almost lost his grandson to violence. Each tale wove thicker threads of connection between them, stitching together their once frayed community. The night grew colder but their warmth blazed bright. As the candles lit in hands, so did the resolve. This could be their moment for change, their moment to reclaim their narrative, but as the crowd's energy shifted, a shadow approached the edge of the gathering. A group of men, faces grim, stepped forward, interrupting the healing atmosphere. That familiar flash of tension returned, and silence spread as the crowd turned their gaze. Are you all really going to stand here and talk while things like this happen? One of them shouted, anger boiling beneath his words. This isn't going to fix anything. The moment hung precariously, confidence threatening to unravel. How could they turn this discord into dialogue? Marcus felt the weight of responsibility. They were so close to something beautiful, a chance to really come together. Look, he began, heart pounding. We all feel the pain. But if we can lift each other up, we'll be stronger. Let us not let anger divide us tonight. But would the newcomers listen? Would they find common ground in their grief and strive for understanding? As the standoff continued, Marcus clenched his fists. The next few moments could either shatter everything they had built or bind them closer together. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation, and all he could do was hope. Would they rise above the anger, or would the spirit of unity crumble as divisions threatened to seep back in? The silence stretched, an invisible thread pulling tight between the two factions. The group of men stood firm, their expressions a mix of disdain and hurt. The tension was like a thick fog, handcuffing the momentum Marcus had fought so hard to create. He felt like a tightrope walker, balancing between two sides, unsure which way to lean. Listen. Just listen. Marcus threw his arms up, his heart racing. Each of us has suffered loss. We're here because we care. Let us find a way to show that to each other. His voice trembled slightly, but he pressed on. Just give it a chance. You say talking doesn't solve anything, but it's a start. Fighting only tears us apart. The young man by Marcus nodded, stepping closer to the group that had approached them. My brother was taken from me too. He shouted, the rawness of emotion cracking his voice. I need to channel this anger into something that matters. We can't just lash out. It's not what he would have wanted. Some of the newcomers exchanged hesitant glances. There was a flicker of interest among them. A tall man with a bandana covering his head stepped forward. What do you think you'll accomplish by sitting around a table? This place is broken, it needs action. His words, though harsh, were layered with desperation. We're not sitting around, replied an older woman from the crowd, her voice steady. We want to share. To understand each other's pain. And to work together to fix things. That's action, too. Marcus felt a spark of hope flickering back to life as the crowd murmured in agreement. They were talking. The energy began to shift once more, and he felt a room of glances turning toward one another, weighing their emotions with newfound consideration. What if we held a meeting tomorrow? A middle-aged man suggested tentatively, his brow furrowing in thought. Where we can gather and make our voices heard? We'll come together and address what needs to change. Yeah. Echoed another voice, rising in warmth. We can invite community leaders. We can plan ways to support each other, find resources for our kids, and create a real plan for the future. The shadowy tension ebbed slightly as more people nodded, eyes brightening with possibilities. At that moment, the irate man in the group hesitated, his anger dissolving into something softer. "I lost my brother too," he said quietly, almost to himself. "But I want something to change." "Then change it with us," the young man urged gently, his voice breaking through the fog. "Let us stand together instead of apart. We've got so much work to do, and we don't have to do it alone." A change began within the newcomers. The message, gentle but resolute, found its way past their defenses. A new alchemy emerged, grief transforming into empowerment, anger into determination. As they laid out plans for the meeting, a unity blossomed like the flickering flames of their candles. They began to embrace their shared vulnerabilities, their collective goals shining brighter than the darkness that had enveloped them. But just as they began to breathe in this new energy, a siren pierced through the air, the sound rising like a wave of apprehension. The community shifted, collective breath hitching in worry. Heads turned, eyes wide. "What's happening now?" someone whispered. An unseen weight settled in Marcus's stomach, the fear creeping back in. What else could disrupt their fragile bond? Were they really ready for the challenges still looming ahead? In that moment, he knew something had to be done. They had to realize that building bridges was only the beginning. Destiny awaited them, and it would demand more than just words. Would they have the strength to face whatever came next? Would they stand united when the real test arrived? The siren wailed, cutting through the moment like a knife. With each burst of sound, the collective energy shifted from hope to anxiety. Marcus felt the weight of it, pressing against his chest. He scanned the crowd, noting the taut faces and clenched fists. What had begun as a gentle flicker of unity now threatened to be extinguished. "What is that?" A voice trembled from the back, fear echoing in its tone. "Just keep talking," Marcus urged, desperation clawing at him. He didn't want them to unravel now. "We can handle this. Focus on what we just started." The siren faded, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. It wasn't just any siren, it was the unmistakable sound of the police, rousing a flurry of unease. He noticed several attendees glance instinctively at each other, wearing expressions that echoed more than doubt. They held years of experience fighting against an oppressive system. The tall man with the bandana stepped back, his bravado waning. "This isn't going to look good to them," he muttered, his voice a far cry from the defiance he had shown moments before. Marcus took a deep breath, grappling with the suffocating fear that threatened to throw him off balance yet again. "We need to show that we're in control. They're not our enemy. Not today." Foundations of anger began to bubble under the surface, but Marcus pressed on. "This is the time for our voices to stand together. If we show them our unity, we can change the narrative. They need to see a community coming together, not tearing each other apart." His voice soared above the murmurs, capturing the attention of those around him. "We've lost so much. Let us not lose our chance to demonstrate what we might build if we stand firm. Let us choose hope over fear." The crowd began to stir. They were still worried, still scared, but hope had flickered back to life, despite the ominous presence outside. A woman stepped forward, her voice steady. "We've been silenced for too long. We need to be heard, not just for us but for our families and our future. Let us march," someone else called out, their voice rising with bravery. "Show them we're strong, we're here, and we won't be ignored." In that moment, Marcus realized that they were ready to face whatever uncertainties lurked outside. He could see the determination building in their eyes. They weren't just willing to talk. They were willing to act. "Right now, we're going to show them that we are one. Together." Marcus shouted, adrenaline rushing through him. The crowd erupted into cheers, voices rising in a chorus of resilience. What had felt so fragile just moments ago seemed suddenly fortified. As they began to move as one, marching toward the heart of their community, Marcus felt pride swelling within him. This was only the beginning, and there was no turning back now. United in purpose, they pressed on, the people at their backs becoming a formidable force, yet, just as momentum surged, Marcus caught sight of flashing blue lights reflecting against the storefront windows. A chill washed over him. Had they really thought this through? What would happen when they faced the police head-on? The fear loomed large, but so did a stubborn urge to fight for change. Keep going, just keep going. Marcus encouraged, even as uncertainty battled for control in his heart. Would they stand tall or would fear compel them to back down? As the police cars rounded the corner, a question lingered in the air. Would this moment propel them toward change, or would it shatter the fragile unity they had worked so hard to build? With the blue lights illuminating the street like a strobe of anxiety, Marcus felt the pulse of the crowd quicken. They were nearing the police blockade, and he could sense the fear seeping back into the air, threatening to suffocate the momentum they had just built. "Stay calm," he shouted, his voice louder than all the chaos surrounding them. He scanned the faces as they pressed closer together, searching for signs of hesitation. He found none. Instead, he saw resolve, hands intertwined, heads held high. They stood as a wall of defiance against the approaching fear. As they reached the intersection, the police stood waiting, some officers visibly tense, ready for whatever might unfold. Marcus caught the eyes of a young girl in front of him, perhaps 10 years old. She looked up, her wide, trusting gaze filled with admiration and belief. It was a reminder of what they were fighting for, and it ignited something within him. This is for her, he thought, and the urge to protect their future strengthened his resolve. "Everyone, remember why we're here," he bellowed. "We're not here to fight. We're here to be seen and heard." A ripple of agreement surged. The crowd began to chant, their voices harmonizing in a powerful melody of hope and demands for justice. As they approached the line of police, Marcus felt every heartbeat resonate in his ears, amplifying the tension that hummed through the air. "We are peaceful," he murmured to himself, a mantra to soothe his rising anxiety. "We are united." But behind the officers, a figure emerged that made his heart race, a tall woman dressed in a crisp uniform, her expression unreadable. She approached Marcus, stepping forward with a commanding presence. He could see her badge gleaming under the streetlights. "Step back," she ordered, her tone firm but not unkind. "We don't want this to escalate into something greater than it needs to be." "Neither do we." Marcus shot back, adrenaline pumping. "We want to talk about our concerns, about our community, our people." He gestured to the crowd, voices rising in steady support. The officer paused, her gaze sweeping across the assembled faces, lingering momentarily on the young girl Marcus had noticed. There was a flicker of recognition, a moment of connection, as she took in the crowd's determination. "Let us hear you, then," she finally said, lower and more empathetic, as if testing the waters. "But keep it civil." Encouraged by her words, Marcus directed the crowd to calm the chants momentarily, opting for a unified front. He stepped toward her, heart hammering, ready to voice their message. "We're not against you. We need your help. People are hurting, our families are threatened. We want a future where we can feel safe in our own skin." The crowd listened intently, tension twisting in their guts, anticipation palpable. Marcus let out a deep breath, welcoming the slight nod from the officer. "Your voices can matter," she replied, softer now, eyes serious. "But you need to trust us, too. This can only work if we listen to one another." The moment hung in the air, crackling with possibilities. Could this be a turning point? A foot in the door for future conversations to dismantle the hesitance that had long existed? Hope surged in him once again, but just as the tension started to ease, a commotion erupted from the back, a clash of voices, shouts rising. The crowd jolted, fear crackling anew, spilling back into confusion and anger. "What is happening?" Marcus shouted, turning to see the source of the disturbance. The last flickers of their unity seemed to waver, and he could feel the ground shaking beneath them, would they hold together, or would this be the moment that fell apart? As the crowd swayed like leaves in a storm, an urgent question loomed: could they navigate this newfound communication without losing everything? The disorder rippled through the crowd like wildfire, tension reaching a boiling point. Marcus watched in horror as the anger from earlier resurfaced, overwhelming the fragile unity they had fought so hard to build. From the back, voices clashed, a heated argument escalated, hands clenched into fists. "Stop!" Marcus shouted, forcing himself to the forefront, desperation lacing every word. "We need to stay focused. We have to be the voice of reason." Eyes darted, searching, questioning. Some youth remembered the pain that had driven them here, while others screamed for action, ready to tear the whole movement apart. Suddenly, the young man who had taken a step toward dialogue earlier, the one who lost his brother, pushed through the crowd, a look of urgency on his face. "Let us not lose ourselves," he called, searching for everyone's gaze. "We're more than our anger. We can't let it control us." His words hung in the air. Slowly, heads began to nod, and there was a crack in the wall of hostility. "We're here to fight for our future," Marcus pressed on, his voice steady, yet fervent. "If we let our anger eat away at ourselves, what difference will we make? This is our moment." The murmurs began to change, uncertainty replaced by deliberation. Then, unexpectedly, Mrs. Henderson broke forward, her hands raised in calm defiance. "We've done enough fighting among ourselves," she said, voice strong and unwavering, her lips curling into a gentle smile. "Let us channel our need for change into something greater rather than tearing each other apart." Within moments, the room started to still. The transition from rage to reflection felt almost tangible. The officer, too, watched with intent, perhaps feeling the shifting dynamics take shape before her eyes. "Let us put our anger aside. We need to show them we're better than that, stronger together," Marcus urged. "Let us redirect this energy toward healing, spreading awareness about our struggles." His voice echoed as the crowd took a collective breath. For the first time that night, it felt like unity could prevail again. As the chaos dwindled, the officer took a step forward, her arms crossing, yet her stance more relaxed. "You're right," she said. "We can't address this with violence. We need to find common ground. We're here to protect, but we must work together." There was quiet understanding in her gaze, a flicker of hope igniting in the crowd again like oxygen on a smoldering flame. "We can advocate for our veterans and demand accountability, but only if we stand together," Marcus declared, a sense of purpose surging through him. "This is more than just about one child or one tragedy. It's about our entire community, our future." With a nod of agreement, murmurs of "together" and "united" spread through the crowd. It was infectious, empowerment replacing defeat. Marcus took a deep breath, heart swelling with their renewed embrace of hope. "Let us bring this dialogue into the community," he energized. "Let us spread the call for understanding and connection, not just among ourselves, but with those from the outside too. They need to hear us. They need to know our stories." With enthusiasm bubbling like the first flashes of sunrise, plans emerged. Tasks flowed as they banded together in motions of solidarity, passing pens and paper, drafting letters, organizing meetings, building something real. As they shared thoughts, dreams, and visions for a safer community, Marcus caught sight of that young girl again, her bright smile blossoming to life. It tugged at something inside him, reminding him of the reasons they were standing here. They fought for all the children, those in the community and those yet to come. In the midst of their renewal, laughter broke the tension as they shared soft jokes and connected stories. Everyone felt it. The silence had transformed among them, and now a unified energy flowed forward, a promise shimmering in their shared future. Eventually, the police officer stepped back slightly, now part of the dialogue they had forged. "I'll help you bring your voice to the right ears. This is how we rebuild." "Trust," she offered, and that glimmer wrapped them in further assurance. Soon, they had plans to pressure local leaders, to facilitate forums highlighting community narratives and advocating for necessary reforms. Marcus felt joy and relief washing over him with every note they wrote, every connection made. This was the moment where they took the first steps into something beautiful, something powerful. As night deepened, the shadows that had once crept across Harmony Springs seemed to lessen. Instead, they remained bathed in new light, the warmth of tears of joy, laughter, and hope nestled into each other's arms. Victory wasn't in the tides of anger or violence, it was a collective realization that they were far stronger united. And with that unity came the promise of a bright, shared tomorrow. "Let this be our legacy," Marcus murmured as the crowd buzzed with ideas, his heart full. "Together, we'll change the world." And as the stars sparkled above, they marched onward, one step closer to a world where every child could feel safe, every voice mattered, and every community thrived. Now this is the time to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel. You need to stay updated with more amazing transformations like this. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and boost this impactful story. Comment your thoughts and feelings about the ending. Let us hear your voice. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel this undeniable spirit of unity, change, and hope. Don't wait not even one more second to show your support. Only true fans understand how crucial your engagement is.